This is your Olympic hero and former WWE champion, Kurt Angle. And I just wanted to give a shout out to my guys, Clint and Noah. When it comes to covering sports, there is no one better. And believe me, that's true. It's damn true.
Get stealing, woo, wheeling, dealing, limousine riding, jet flying, son of a gun.
I am the best in the world at what I do.
Gentlemen, you are the top 1%. The elite. Best of the best.
But the cream will rise to the top, oh yeah.
The best there is, the best there was, and the best there ever will be.
You are now listening to the Elite Sports Podcast, brought to you by Mo Sports in Liberty, the pinnacle of hard-hitting sports talk, featuring weekly expert analysis and top-notch interviews. And now, please welcome your hosts, Clint Schweitzer and Noah Groninger.
Well, we've officially been without sports for over 2 months now, but your money still stays and plays right here on the Elite Sports Podcast. Clint Schweitzer and Noah Groninger, and I'll tell you what, Noah, we are continuing to bring it each and every week. Quarantine, no matter. Here on the Elite Sports Podcast, we deliver the goods, and this week we'll be talking with former 6-time Pro Bowler, defensive end from the Kansas City Chiefs, Tamba Hali, going to be joining us to talk about his career, what he's seen out of the current version of the Chiefs that won the Super Bowl, what his thoughts are on some of his former teammates that didn't get a chance to grab that brass ring. Noah, it's going to be great to catch up with Tamba here on the Elite Sports Podcast, my friend.
It absolutely is. He played for 4 coaches in his time with the Chiefs, whether it be when he started out with Herman Edwards, moved on to Todd Haley, then Romeo Crennel, and then finishing it off with Andy Reid. We've got to ask him just about those coaches, his thoughts, his viewpoints on each one of those guys. And, of course, when he got here in 2006, first round, 20th pick, his defensive coordinator was none other than Gunther Cunningham, and sadly we've recently lost him, so we're going to have to get his thoughts on how Gunther helped his career when he first got into the league. He was known as a raw talent out of Penn State, coming from Liberia over to the United States, playing at Penn State for Joe Paterno, and then coming into the NFL. He hadn't played a ton of football, so that's why he was considered that raw talent, and what Herman Edwards and Gunther Cunningham and then the coaches as he progressed in his career, what they meant to him, and some of these big playoff games that we played in under Andy Reid with the Colts, so the devastating comeback. We finally get our first playoff win since 1994 under Andy Reid. We beat the Texans 30-0, and then we lose to the Steelers and lose to the Titans to finish off his career. So there's a lot here with him. He's very kind to give us his time here, and so I can't wait to bring on Tamba Hali.
Not only that, but just his life after football, the fact that he is now a musician. He came out with an album a couple years ago called Tamba Juice. Want to employ everyone to check that out on Spotify, any way you choose to take in your streaming music these days. Tamba Juice, a great album, and he's got a great talent. And maybe ask about him collaborating with another former guest of ours, and Dwayne Money Bo, who's also a rapper these days. So got a lot to talk about with Tamba. A lot going on. You know, sports is on the back burner now, but we've got things like, you know, for instance, The Last Dance. What great timing by ESPN to put out this documentary. People are really just all in on this thing. Kind of some revisionist history, I think, on some people's parts when it comes to Michael Jordan and that 98 Bulls team. But nonetheless, high entertainment. And, you know, what else do we have right now? The Last Dance hits at the perfect time.
It does. I'm maybe not as high as everyone else is on it. I'm enjoying the content. We don't have anything else in lieu of sports right now. We had the NFL draft. Now that's over. So really all the focus is on The Last Dance. And like I said, I love the content. I love Michael Jordan. I hate all this, these people coming out now saying LeBron James is the GOAT, the greatest of all time when it comes to basketball. So, of course, I'm loving this. But the rewind all the way back to like 1992 and then fast forward again to 1997 and rewind again to 1990 and then fast forward, like it's just too jumbled for me. I'm not enjoying it. I'm getting into one storyline, then they rewind and go through just Dennis Rodman as a baby and Scottie Pippen as a baby growing up with his brothers. And then, let's come back and we go back to old series and come back now. It's too jumbled. I'm not enjoying how they're doing it, but I am enjoying the actual content of it, if that makes sense.
Well, we call it non-linear storytelling in our world. You know, we've put out a few documentaries in our day. We're working on our third, so we're not totally in the dark about this. And it's funny because the way we're constructing our current film, Saturday Supremacy, it's like now we have to use The Last Dance sort of as the benchmark. Like, do we want to make it kind of coherent, or do we want to do The Last Dance? And we're kind of gravitating away from that as The Last Dance is coming out because of reasons like you mentioned. But overall, it's tremendous to go back and take a look at some of those things. You know, as a kid growing up, you know, Michael Jordan was basketball to me. And not only that, but just larger than life, from Nike and McDonald's and Gatorade and the things that he endorsed and the things he was about. And then Space Jam comes out in 96 whenever I'm in middle school. And at the height of my fandom and basketball was just in my blood at that point. Man, has there ever been a more important athlete than Michael Jordan? And just seeing the way that what made him who he was, the competitive nature of how he approached everything and how he approached people and how he approached gambling. It was a competition for him, whether it was for $1 or $10,000 hands of blackjack. He was so dialed in. He wanted to beat you. He wanted to embarrass you, and he wanted to win, and he was going to win at all costs. And you know what? I damn well respect it.
Absolutely. I love that competitive nature. And there was a story in there about him and Magic Johnson playing cards, and Magic would win some, and Michael would come back and not just want to win by a little bit. He'd want to step on your throat and crush you into dust on the ground. And Magic's like, can you just beat me a little bit? Do you have to completely crush me off the face of the planet? And Michael's like, yeah, I do. Like, that's just a competitive thing in him, whether it's playing quarters on the floor, on the carpet with the security guards, or whether it's $1,000 holes of golf, whatever it is. Michael Jordan is completely focused, completely dialed in to beating you, crushing you, taking your money, and making you slink away the loser, because he has to be the winner. That's just the competitive fire inside him at all times.
Well, I hope you are dialed in to what we're doing here on the Elite Sports Podcast, because no matter what's going on in the world, we are out there bringing you exclusive interviews. And this week's going to be Tamba Hali. Guys, I hope that you will all take the time and subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, or Spotify. And certainly hope that you'll check us out on our website, which is gasnsports.com. That is the Great American Sports Network. That is the umbrella to which the Elite Sports Podcast and everything that we do sports related falls under. So please hit us up there for articles, breaking news, interviews, podcasts, and much more on gasnsports.com. So without further ado, I want to take you to our interview. It was, in fact, a most fortuitous Zoom meeting that we were able to do because, you know, being out there, being in person, that's a no-no. Zoom has brought us all together, and we want to take you to our interview that we did with Tamba Hali this week. How you doing, my friend? Who you got there?
I got the kids. I got James here with me.
That's awesome. What's up, James? How you guys? How you guys holding up there? You guys keeping busy?
Yeah, I mean, every day we got a handful. There's 5 of us, and I have 5 kids, 2 adults, some grandparents.
Trying to play teacher, trying to keep them all, and you know, making sure that they're following all the school regimens and everything like that. yeah, kinda, you know. But right for the first month, they kind of just relaxed. But now, you know, with all this not knowing, you know, we got to start our teaching. Yep. Oh, absolutely. That's great of you, Tom. I tell you what, it's a pleasure to have you joining us here, my friend. I just kind of want to start with the music side of things for you, because you came out with your album Tamba Juice back in 2018. Great stuff. We had Dwayne Bowe, Money Bowe, on our show a couple months ago and talking about his work. So what's next for you as far as music? And have you thought about collaborating with Money Bowe? It just seems too perfect.
As far as music, I've already created 2 compilations. One in regards to the diaspora, Liberia. There's a lot going on over there, and I've been going back. So trying to raise awareness about education, STEM program. And they don't know much about football, so they really didn't know too much about me. But ever since I've been doing music, it's starting to resonate with those people. So I collabed with maybe 4 or 5 different artists, like in Liberia. And prior to this onset, we were going to release the compilation, but it'll be stupid to release it because there's no movement. Everyone is home just listening. So we're going to release, songs one by one. It's called Relume Records Presents Liberia. I'm featured on every song, with different artists, Faithonic, Christoph the Change, Pills, Gina.
Wow.
Yeah, a bunch of different acts in Liberia. And then I have another compilation just on myself. It's called Love and Lights. I'm doing some singing, some rapping, some sounding like Drake. You guys love. So I'm doing all of that just to kind of show that I can do those things musically. Dwayne, we're cool. We do similar style, but there's a huge gap. He's really urban, into that style of life. I'm like, maybe not really because of the, it's too much. I got a whole family that has to kind of look towards me, and I cannot portray the style of image that's in that light. But again, I still can put my music around what they're doing just because I like the sound that they're projecting.
Well, Clint mentioned it there. We talked to Money Bo, and he did say that you guys had at least some talks about collaborating on maybe a Chiefs anthem for the Kingdom kind of in the future. I don't know what your thoughts are on that, if you guys have made any hay on that.
So far, we haven't done much discussion in regards to just making music or doing an anthem. It would be great. If Dwayne and I can actually put some real truth behind the message if we do a song and it resonate with the Kingdom. So, music is not easy. It takes time.
No.
You guys know it's not easy. But it would be good. I think Dwayne used to come and freestyle in my studio all the time. At one point he enjoyed doing it, but he wasn't a writer. I always wrote, and now he's, full-fledged going for it. I just had to grow up from it in the sense of, when I was young, we wanted to all be, Lil Wayne or Jay-Z.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now we're just as old as those guys, and we need to see what music can really be used for instead of how we can project the ego.
Well, Tamba, you've been out of the game now for 3 years. You last played for the Chiefs in 2017, and the Chiefs win their first Super Bowl here this year. What was kind of your thoughts about that? So many of your former teammates, you guys helped lay the groundwork for this thing. Justin Houston, Eric Berry, Derek Johnson, Jamal Charles, so many of you guys laid the groundwork, and then it comes to fruition with the Super Bowl championship. Was there some kind of resentment, any bitterness, or was it just like, hey, all hail the Chiefs, this was huge for the Kingdom? What was it for you?
Huge for the Kingdom. My family and I, we enjoyed going down to South Beach, spent a lot of money that we all actually made games, including James. Yeah, it was the experience, sharing it with my family, I think was more gratifying because there's so much pressure when you're playing and you're on the field that it's bittersweet. I want to be playing and getting the Super Bowl ring, but in the same sense, I'm appreciative that I was part of an organization, or at least an establishment, of bringing the Super Bowl to fruition. And a ring is almost like an offering, but the work the guys put in is more like the ring, and I feel like I'm part of that ring. And I don't need to go. I don't even wear rings. My finger doesn't straight. But I'm really happy that they did, because we've had so many great teams come and go, so many great teams just come and go, and for whatever it's worth, to have a coach like Andy who's able to win with anyone on the field, it just tells you, where the organization sits at this time.
Well, Tamba, you should definitely feel a part of this Super Bowl. You did so much here in your time in Kansas City, like you said, helped build the foundation to where we are today. And you're second in sacks in Chiefs history, only behind Derek Thomas. What does that mean to you?
It's an honor to even think that I was able to do something like this. I was projected to only be in the league 3 years, and even the doctors like, oh, he got bad knees, he won't even be able to last. And looking back at it, to even know that people will remember that I'm sitting second. And people will say, Tom, but you really don't understand it, because it may take another 10, 15 years for another guy to maybe able to do that. And, I take it for granted because a lot of great players come and go, but it's special to know that I'm sitting in that position, and I'm a young man to just know that I did that, and it feels good. I mean, it feels good, but it's surreal because I don't know how to attach it to anything, you know?
Yeah.
Well, you came in, Dick Vermeil's the coach, then it's Herm Edwards, and then it's Todd Haley, then it's Romeo Crennel, then it's Andy Reid. I mean, talk about that journey for you, because you're able to remain a steadying force in the Chiefs organization and playing at a Pro Bowl level, no matter kind of who was in charge here. Obviously, Andy Reid takes over and things have been steady since then, but it was a rough go playing for those many coaches. How difficult was that?
It was difficult. The reality is when we lost our Lamar Hunt, when we lost him in 2007, it was a big blow to the organization, and now trying to first establish management, because Carl Peterson was no longer going to be around, and Clark was now in position to, establish the franchise, and different coaches. I love Todd Haley, to be honest with you. I love his demeanor. The GM Scott Pioli, love Scott, micromanager. It's just understanding these guys. Scott's different than John, so those guys were really tough. They reminded me when I was at Penn State. Joe was not easy on us. Simple little rules, and if you didn't abide, you didn't play. It was almost the same with, wouldn't say Haley, but more with Scott. Haley was back and forth. Someday he'll be happy with you, and you would think you guys are really cool. Other days he'll be the coach. So you had to kind of know your role with him. But I enjoyed playing for Scott Pioli. Romeo Crennel, I couldn't ask for a better coach at that time because he loved the players. So long you loved football, he was not going to baby you. He wanted for you to play. It's just, 1 year is not going to turn nothing over, especially in this league and how hard it is. Coach Reid came in and changed the culture immediately. Because there was so much doubt in our mind because of so many games we lost that were close. And Coach Reid came, and once we got down, you can see he's not even pressed. It's like, what's wrong, Coach? We're about to lose this game. And we end up winning the game, and it's surprising. And it's like, over time, we started to understand how he wanted to do business wasn't what we was doing. Workouts were hard. Being on time is very important. Being accountable, being available. He made anything that players wanted, you got. So he knew that you should show up on Sunday. If you guys want a rim, you want to shoot balls? Sure. Put the rim in the locker room. Or you want video games? You want this? You want that? You got it. So long Sunday came and you realized what was at stake and you played well, Coach wouldn't even bother you. He wouldn't. He's so good at it. The hardest part of playing for Coach was camp. 8:00 in the morning, we're on the field. So if you're one of those guys who like to do the other things, you probably won't make the team. So that was hard. First thing in the morning, we did the hardest thing. Then the next hardest thing is his practice are not hard. It's long. Yeah. So you're on the field for 3 hours. It's not like he's, making you, run. It's more like mentally we have to be involved because that's the game. It's an up and down. You just got to be in tune in practice. And it changed the culture immediately. If you couldn't play, he didn't even bother you. He got the next guy in. That was the coach. And it was almost like before, I would be so hurt. And they're like, oh, Tommy, you got to go. I got to take a shot. And I'll go. Coach, if you can't play, Coach, it's like, cool, get well. The next guy, he brought good players around that. If you can't play, you may lose your job because this guy's good. The guy backing you up is just as good. So, Coach actually did so much for me. My last year, I was a bit hurt, and I think Coach knew my stat as far as playing and practicing. At that time, I don't think I've missed practice, and I've been out games. So, but I was hurt. I was getting hurt in the game, and Coach pretty much saw that if he plays this year, he may not be able to walk. Maybe he'll hurt himself because they knew the science behind what was going on. I was just mentally intact. Like, I'm going to play. Every Sunday, I don't care. I'm going to play. So he helped me out. He paid me a lot of money. He sat me down, brought me back, played six games, And we still talk to this day. There's no animosity towards this idea. And my family always like, oh, he should have kept you in. You would have, creeped up on 100 sacks. I'm like, bro, I don't care about sacks today. I'm walking today. I'm playing with my kids today. Who did that for me? Coach. Another coach may have kept plugging it, and I probably wouldn't be walking today. So it's a lot of respect that goes for Coach Reed because he's done it for so long and he knows how to treat the players.
That's great to hear that he did that for you, and you have this great quality of life now. And going back to 2006, you're drafted, you come in, your first defensive coordinator, Gunther Cunningham, sadly, he's recently passed away. But what did he do for your game coming in as a rookie?
Gunther was different, very harsh, a very militant way of working. There was no filter the way he went about the business. And I embraced it because it was a new style. I came from Joe. You can't cuss at the players. And when I got there, I started seeing, players cussing at coaches, coaches cussing at players, and I couldn't relate to it. But over time, I realized what my mind was starting to do. These things are supposed to make you do the opposite thing so we can get you out of here. So I kind of peeped game, and at one time I remember Gunther kept putting me in I guess they call it either head up on the tight end. It's a 6 technique, maybe. So I didn't like it because I want to be on the edge coming. And I felt like early in my career, I didn't succeed because of that 6 technique. I'm playing the tight end to the tackle every time. I'm like slow on the ball. And one time, me and him got in a huge argument because he came in a room talking all this linebacker talk. I said, Gunther, just put me on the outside. I bet you will win games. And he cussed me out the whole meeting.
Oh, God.
That's Gunther.
The whole meeting. All I could do is put my head down and just be sorry. Just heard that I said something.
Oh, wow.
But, Gunther loved me, and I loved him. And his daughter and I, we used to talk all the time as friends.
Well, another guy that certainly helped lay this foundation, and there was recently an E60 on, Alex Smith, who suffered a horrific leg injury, of course, his first year with the Redskins. You played with him for the better part of 4 seasons there in Kansas City. Again, another guy there that helps lay the groundwork that's not there for the Super Bowl win, but he's every bit a part of it as you guys are. Just talk about him as a person and kind of what your thoughts were when you heard about the injury and maybe if you've seen the E60 and kind of what he's overcome. It's insane.
I haven't seen the E60. When I heard it happen, I wasn't happy about it because he's a competitor, and he definitely wanted to continue to prove that he can play at this high level and actually win a Super Bowl. One thing I have high respect for Alex because a lot of guys in his position don't know how to treat that position. They don't know how to go about the business. And Alex was such a professional, regardless if we won or lost. He knew how to conduct himself in the locker room around the guys. He knew how to talk to the guys. He knew what not to say to the guys. You would ask Alex some questions, and he won't answer you because he knows it's not for you to be in this conversation. And, sometimes people in that position would start talking and start saying, oh, we should have won this. We should have did this. And Alex was so good about his role. When we all loved it, and we all felt like, man, he could do better than that. He should do this and do this. But he's a professional. We don't know what's being asked of him. And he handled it so well, and he continued to do it till he got hurt. When I saw he got hurt, and then I saw a snippet of his leg now where, there's I don't know what it is. But, yeah, it's hard to look at because, that could be me. And I'm looking at former quarterback that he's a quarterback. He shouldn't hurt his leg like that. And then he's, going through it. But he's a warrior, and he'll get through this one. And this guy's a Hall of Famer, regardless of what people say. In my book, the way he conducted himself, the way he won games, he's able to complete the long passes. He had great players. For whatever it's worth, this is how the cards unfold for majority of the people in the NFL. When I got there, Casey Wegman hadn't been to a playoff game for 15 years. He'd been there maybe one or twice. So, it's hard. This is one of the hardest sports. So, for what it's worth, Alex, he did extraordinary as a player, 3 teams, and I don't know where he sits in stats, but it has to be high. It has to be. The guy, he scored touchdowns. He won big games, So we're rooting for him. I hope he can make it out. I hope he doesn't play football anymore, though. I hope.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, Tamba, I just want to talk a little bit about your journey, because your life post football has been so prolific, and you've got it seems like just a wonderful family, and you're doing so great, and it's so good to see you there. And your music, the album Tamba Juice, is tremendous. I hope everybody will check that out on Spotify right now. All the listeners need to be downloading it as we speak, as soon as the interview's over. But just talk a little bit about your journey, because growing up in Liberia, you escape at age 10. Your dad is a chemistry professor, and you wind up getting to go to college to play football at Penn State. You become an all Big Ten performer and a first-round draft pick in the NFL. How did all that kind of fall in line for you? Because, it seems like your life path, it was 1,000,000 to 1 that could have happened to you, and yet you put in the determination, put in the work for that. Your family situation, your dad is perseverance, getting you guys here to America had to help. Just kind of take us through your journey, man. It's been amazing.
Yeah. I mean, I don't mean to offend anyone. I think I would start with my faith. First, I have a strong belief system, and it works, so we'll start with that. We grew up in the church, and my mom is a minister. My stepfather is a minister. He was an ex-Muslim, and he became a minister back 30 years ago, and he did that he's still a minister. But during the war, I can only credit this one to the maker, the creator, because the situations that we were placed in, the odds are against us that we make it out alive, just to make it out alive, not to even be a football player, just to make it out alive. So to flee the country and then get to the Ivory Coast, and then my dad be able to get in contact with my dad, and then my dad have the spirit in him to say, those are my children, not just I had kids. Those are my children. I'm going to do whatever it takes for them to at least get an opportunity and come back and battle in immigration in Abidjan, and then go to Ghana, and then Ghana, finally we did all the testing and they allow us to come. We got to the country. I'm 10 years old. I can't read. I can't write. I'm placed in the 5th grade. So I'm pretty much, humility is right there. I have to stand up in class with another kid who's going to read with me verbatim, because I didn't grow up in the system. I couldn't read the book in the 5th grade. So I'm in ESL, second language, first 4 years, I'm struggling in school. As time went by, we were able to catch on, all the siblings that got here. And I guess one thing that was dynamic was I enjoyed playing sports. So I played basketball, I played soccer. Football was a gift, again, from the creator, because I didn't grow up knowing, Reggie White or Derek Thomas. I'm new to the country, 94. So 2000, I'm in high school, 98. And my gym teacher said, you have to play, because he was the defensive coordinator. He said, you have to play. So I played, and I did well. I actually wasn't going to play the following year, because I had just won the free throw contest at Keystone basketball camp in Pennsylvania. So I'm already hyped. Like, I'm about to,
Heck yeah.
You're talking about 1,000 guys. I mean, listen, there may be one. But, the coach again, the basketball coach said, no, you're going to play football. You're going to play football. And I remember Mr. Malone saying that to me, and I played. Now it backfired. I didn't play basketball after my sophomore year. I skipped. I'm like, playing basketball. And my football coach told me, you don't need to play basketball. There's a risk. Play your senior year, because after you're done, you sign and all of that. Cool. So I didn't play. I played football, and I didn't understand what was going on. I was highly regarded in the state of New Jersey. I just didn't understand what was going on. I didn't know what a scholarship was. I was still understanding the language that I'm speaking at that level and everything that's going on. Like, I didn't know you had to pay to go to school. None of these things are really, you coming from Liberia, this is not life, Fine. I get all these scholarships, over 65 scholarships to go anywhere in the state. I picked Penn State because of Joseph Paterno. I think he was a stand-up guy. and he was very real with the players. He looked at the guys and said, "Hey, listen, if this is not the place for you, you don't need to come." You know, I was recruited by Miami that told me, "Listen, we got gang of guys here. You're gonna redshirt." Even Joe told me, "You're gonna redshirt." Syracuse told me, "We'll play you because Freeney is leaving. We need someone to fill in." So, you know, it was between those two. I took a visit all the way to Southern California. That's when Lane Kiffin was just maybe like, you know, an assistant, and I was considering it, but for some reason it was Joe. Mm-hmm. Joe didn't. When I went on his visit, it was the wackest visit. Like there was no party for me to be all happy about. It was no, I would take you here, you know, fool you. It was Joe was being very real. I slept in the dorm with the guys. I hung around the players, and I just enjoyed that atmosphere and said, "Wow, this is how it will be." Fine, I'm going here. School was hard. I won't hide. There was some. I got to credit some of these women that choose to be around these football players. They definitely. My girlfriend at the time definitely helped me with my schoolwork in understanding how things would go. So to credit that to her. She was a good soul at the time for me being around. She helped me, but it was hard. I had to still take my tests. We had first dibs on tutors. It was hard, and I don't want to say came easy. I worked at it, graduated with this broadcast journalism degree, and that's fine. I started out with science, computer science, but it's too tough when you're playing sports and you like girls and too many going on. So I just stuck with the talking thing. And, being drafted, Herm Edwards and Carl Peterson were the two. Herm was probably the only coach that came. I think there were other GMs, but Herm and Carl came to my workout, and they brought me on a visit, and they highly favored me because you was looking at Manny Lawson, who runs a 4.4. I mean, the guy, you remember Manny, he can fly. Then you got the big guy. He was the number one pick. I forget his name. 2006 draft. Big guy, big defensive end. Mario Williams, isn't it?
Yes.
So you got those guys. You got Bunkley. You got some really good players coming out in the draft. And for whatever it was worth, I mean, Herm really believed in my talent, as well as Gunther and Crumry. Crumry was my positional coach.
Tim Crumry.
They love my work ethic. And when I got to the Chiefs, another struggle because of all of those different coaches and how to adjust in this program. But, the journey it's a learning experience. Obviously, no one wins here. We continue to just progress by learning. And, I give it to the creator that placed me in this position so I can be able to shed some of my light with you guys.
Absolutely. We think that as well. You come in as defensive end. You're with Jared Allen. He gets traded in 2008, and then they switch. Todd Haley comes in 2009, switched to a 3-4, and you're moved outside linebacker. What was that transition like for you?
I was used to it. Being in college, I got there as a DN. They put me at defensive tackle, nose tackle. So I played nose tackle for 2 years. And then after that, coach said, okay, we need to put him at DN. And I played DN. So it was kind of a similar situation, just having to adapt. The hardest part was understanding that I have to cover someone in a way that I never did that before. There's a tree of routes that they're going to run, and I'm just not, I'm not accustomed to it. I struggled with it. But I enjoyed the position because it put me outside of the tight end so I can rush. And it gave me leverage to at least get some sacks. Jared leaving was a blow to me because he was our best pass rusher at the time. I could have only learned more by being around because when he left, you can see how he did when he left the program. He just, skyrocketed. So it was a blow to me. So I had to be a veteran, and that's when everything started going this way because everyone is getting fired, and now the third-year guy is supposed to be the best guy. But it definitely opened my mind into understanding whatever position you're placed in, you just need to embrace it and continue to progress through it because I guess your will is the one that's going to succeed over the fact that you don't know what you're doing. Just rush. Just try to be with the guy. No one knows if you know what you're doing or not. Just, got to just fool them or act it.
Well, Tamba, one of the last things here before we let you go is got to talk about some of these playoff games you were in. 2015, Rule 14, you guys take on the Indianapolis Colts. There's a big comeback from the Colts. You guys lose 45-44. You guys do get a playoff win against the Houston Texans, 30-0. Then you go on to lose to the Patriots. And then you guys only give up 6 field goals, no touchdowns to the Steelers, but you lose the game. And then Marcus Mariota throws a touchdown pass to himself. Derek Johnson blows up Mariota, but they call it forward progress. What's going on here with some of these losses? It's crazy.
If there's politics in football, then I guess you talked about it all.
I agree.
Because those are devastating losses, especially to the elders. You know, Derek Johnson, me, Dustin, we want to win at this time. We know time is ticking. And then you got a coach like Andy Reid who comes in and we're able to do things like make the playoff, come back, win 6, 7, 8 games in a row and make the playoff after losing 4 or 5 games. I mean, the things we were doing with Andy was just extraordinary. But, again, if there's anything to say about politics in football, let it be said. For us, we knew we enjoyed that time because it was like something we never had. It's like having a new child. We're in the playoff. The world's watching us. We are actually decent football players that now people get to see. So, you know, whatever happened, it happened, but we enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. My knees were shot for that Colts game. But I taped it up, took my shot. Let's go.
I remember you had blood coming off the chin strap all over your jersey. That's crazy.
Yeah, it was fun time. It's fun time. And, you know, for the young guys, I think what they need to take from this is that they don't need to feed into what's going on upstairs with management because the game is bigger than us. And if you start really researching in anything, you'll start understanding, wow, it is really bigger than us. It doesn't even start with a win. It starts with humanity, you know? So when you start looking at that picture, it's like, oh, man, like, go enjoy the game. If you can win. If you can get sacks. Whatever they do is up to them. We play.
Well, Tamba, God bless you and your run here. 6 times Pro Bowler, all Big Ten at Penn State. What a career, what a life, what a journey. Before we let you go, last thing, your last year in the league happens to be Patrick Mahomes' rookie year. He comes in, the Chiefs draft him 10 overall. They move up to do it. You were around him probably just for a short amount of time, but what did you see in Patrick Mahomes, and did you kind of foresee that he would sort of take the league and the country by storm the way he has?
Okay, the way he did it, no. I can't say. I knew you had a really good player with you. You know, just watching him in practice, he never complain. He'd get out there and just enjoy and just have fun. And usually guys are trying to work for the position like, oh, Alex, I got to start. Patrick never had that style of mind. He was in practice and just enjoying himself playing. And I think that's the time I watched more because I wasn't playing. And I'm watching and I'm like, this kid's good. This kid's good. And then immediately once they release, you know, that year was done, they released me and Alex, everyone was out. And I'm like, that kid's good. Knowing we have Tariq, though, in the back of my head, I'm always like, hey, Tariq, this kid's good. And, you know, but what he's been able to do in the style he did it with Coach, let's not forget Coach again. You know, Coach, having Coach is a key. It's a huge key. There's a lot of talent that come in the league, but Patrick is blessed to have someone that knows the knowledge of football, not just, you know, I played or I'm a coach or I know what to do when I call plays. He knows football. It's like chess. He knows it. He knows how to win games quickly if he wants. So I was already sold that, no, this guy will win a championship here because of Coach, though. Not just because of Patrick. Nothing against Patrick. He's a talented player. He does exactly what that's needed from that position. But to have a master coach like Andy Reid, you know, it really makes you look bigger than what you are, you know.
Absolutely. Tamba, thank you for just 11 great years here in Kansas City. And we just hopefully you and the family stay safe, stay healthy through all this, man. And we can't thank you enough. And anytime you have any more musical endeavors, anything, just hit us up and we'd be glad to promote it and talk about it, man. You're the best. We can't thank you enough.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. I do have a song coming out. It's called Emergency. I'm just singing on the hook, my African we're doing a lot of singing. So
I cannot wait, my man. Thank you so much. We'll catch up soon, and stay safe out there, brother.
We'll be on the lookout. It was an honor. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Noah, it was great to catch up with Tamba Hali. He had so much to say about the current Chiefs winning the Super Bowl, being so proud of this team. I was actually really taken aback by the fact that, he retires in 2017, or he's released in 2017, and his injuries pretty much dictate that he's done playing football. And then 2 years later, the Chiefs win the Super Bowl, and he doesn't get to be a part of it. Eric Berry's not there. Justin Houston's not there. And Jamal Charles isn't there, and so many people that helped lay the groundwork for this organization, and they're not there. I hadn't really taken the time necessarily to think about it that way. We're just trying to get to the Super Bowl. Patrick Mahomes is here. We're forging ahead. Frank Clark comes in, Tyrann Mathieu comes in, and we're just going for that ring. We make it happen, and you forget about the people that helped bring you there. And Tamba Hali is one of those people. Second all-time in Chiefs history in sacks with 89.5. Wish he could have played long enough to get to 100, but man, it was great to catch up with Tamba. And yeah, he has nothing but love for this current Chiefs team that was able to finally bring it home.
He absolutely does. And he talked about being released, and that was a decision that Coach Reid made for him on a personal level so that he can have a quality of life. He felt like if he kept playing and had been pushed to keep playing, he would have done it. And maybe he wouldn't be walking today, or maybe he would be slightly somewhat like disabled. And we don't want that for him. He says he's living a great quality of life right now. So we'd love to see that. And hats off to Coach Reid for seeing that and doing what's best for him personally in his life. He talked about Jared Allen being traded to the Vikings in 2008 and how he hated to see that because there was so much that he could have learned from Jared. And just the story of Gunther Cunningham and how he liked Todd Haley and Scott Pioli both. I think he's the first person I know that didn't pick a side, that was like, no, I like both of them. I could see what was good in Scott Pioli, what was good in Todd Haley, and I like both of them. So that was very interesting to hear. And like you said, second in sacks in Chiefs history, only behind the great, the legend of Derek Thomas. And is he in the Ring of Honor one day? I'll throw it back to you.
That's a good question. We've debated that. We've talked about people like Eric Berry. And I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to put Tamba Hali in the Chiefs Ring of Honor ahead of Eric Berry. And part of that being the guy made 6 straight Pro Bowls from 2010 to 2015. He was a part of the transitional period in Chiefs history. Coming in 2006 in the Herm Edwards years, they make the playoffs that 06 year, his rookie year, and then not again until 2010, and then not again after that until 2013. And then he gets to win one playoff game in his entire career. Obviously, Eric Berry, a very talented player, a guy that had to gut it out through an unbelievable 2014 cancer diagnosis, and he came back strong. But Tamba Hali was here for 11 years, 6 Pro Bowls, second all-time in sacks in Chiefs history. I've got to give it to Tamba. I think he is absolutely should be on the Chiefs Ring of Honor. And, he's such a humble guy. I think he should be welcomed back here with open arms, hopefully will be in coming years.
It is an interesting case when you talk about it because you're looking at Eric Berry, a huge vocal leader. A lot of people love him. Obviously, it was a great effort by him in his fight against cancer and coming back to the National Football League and having a great year after that. And then Justin Houston, also a very vocal leader. He kind of grew into that. That wasn't his role, but when Eric Berry was out and we switched to Patrick Mahomes, and he had to be that vocal leader, and he was. But if you look at the stats, if you look at the numbers, if you look at the production, maybe Tamba wasn't this huge vocal leader and not someone that everyone really looks to as having this great production, but he does. He's second in sacks in Chiefs history. We keep saying that because I didn't know that. When I went to this interview and looked it up, I was shocked. And to learn that, Derek Thomas is one of the best sack artists in NFL history, and he's the best in Kansas City Chiefs history. And to know that Tamba Hali's right behind him, I think he has to be in the Ring of Honor, especially over guys like Eric Berry and Justin Houston. As great as they were, as great as the time they had, he was just more productive.
What about the all-time leading tackler in Chiefs history, Derek Johnson? We kind of failed to mention him as someone that really helped lay the groundwork and was just tremendous for this franchise. Of course, Jamal Charles as well. Those are two guys that also definitely lay claim to at least an option of, and I think both of those deserve it too. So you know what? In this current era and incarnation of the Kansas City Chiefs franchise under Coach Andy Reid, kind of turned a lot of those players that were just sort of middling out there, wasting their careers, into guys that were competing on a major scale. And I think that's what Tamba was referring to with regards to what Andy Reid was able to do for the individual players and for this franchise. And for that, I think that maybe Andy Reid, who has now won a Super Bowl and punched his ticket to the Hall of Fame, doesn't get enough credit for working with guys like Tamba, like, Jamal Charles, like Derek Johnson and Eric Berry. Those guys, Justin Houston, of course, those guys flourished and they were able to harness their individual talent and become a part of something special here that wound up resulting in a Super Bowl championship, even though they weren't a part of it. And that goes for Alex Smith as well.
Yeah, 100%. Just the glowing words that Tamba had for Andy Reid and how he's giving Mahomes a ton of credit for helping turn this team around and getting them over the hump in the playoffs into a Super Bowl and a Super Bowl victory. But he says none of this happens without Andy Reid, his genius, his methodical approach to this, and how he's playing the long game, and how he has helped not only Patrick Mahomes, not only Alex Smith, not only the offensive players on this team, but he gets the coaching staff on the defensive side that helps these defenders. And what he's done bringing in Steve Spagnuolo, and we saw that we had a lot of growing pains early on in 2019 with this new defense and coaching staff, but man, it really came around, and that you got to tip the cap to Andy Reid and getting rid of Bob Sutton and going with an entirely new defensive coaching staff. So he said, Mahomes is great. He's going to continue being great. He's done unbelievable things. He's a magician back there at quarterback, but none of this happens without Big Red Andy Reid.
Well, we all have a lot of time now to kind of delve back into some of this stuff and relive some of the things that happened. We saw the Alex Smith E60 episode, which was gut-wrenching to say the least, and we're just glad to go back with a player that gave us all for the Kansas City Chiefs organization for over 11 years. Like I said, 6 Pro Bowls. Thank you guys so much for being a part of what we do here on the Elite Sports Podcast. And all that we can ask for you is subscribing to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, or Spotify. It always helps if you leave a little feedback, leave us a star rating. We always appreciate it if you like what we do. We are going to keep the interviews coming. We've got so much more coming up as we're going to keep this going on into the spring and summer months and hopefully creep towards that wonderful, magical, mythical thing that we like to call football season out there in the stratosphere in the fall. We can't thank you enough for joining us right here on the Elite Sports Podcast.